I'm Jessie Mejias. I'm the founder and director of Sunadia Prayer Counseling. And our mission is to help people hear God's voice so that they can have a full and a free life. Because I believe that when people hear God's voice, they can get healing, they can get truth, and they can live the Christian life the way they expect to be able to live the Christian life. So we're in the season of Advent. And I've noticed that every Sunday in some traditional churches, there is what's called the lighting of a candle. And you have an Advent wreath with 4 candles in it. They're usually 3 of them are purple, 1 of them is white, and each one represents a different issue or a different aspect of Advent. The 4 that I know of are hope, peace, joy, and love. And so I thought I wanted to do an Advent devotional, and I wanted to just present a few things that had to do with each one of those topics each week. So I wanted to start out with the first one, which is hope. And the first thing I want you to understand about hope is that hope is the expectation of good. And if you ever thought about it, hope is actually the opposite of fear, because fear is the expectation of evil, but hope is the expectation of good. And so I thought, well, there's so many stories that are inspirational in the Bible about people who had hope. And so I wanted to pick out a few of these stories that seem to resonate with that theme of hope. And the first one I thought I would talk about today is the story of Hagar. Now, most of you may know the story of Hagar, but if you don't, I'll just kind of fill you in. We know Abraham, who is the father of faith, didn't have a whole lot of faith in God being able to produce an heir through him and through Sarah, because God had said he was going to give Abram and Sarah an heir. Now, Sarah was pretty old, Abraham was pretty old, so he figured, hey, let me help God out a little bit, okay? I'm going to go and get myself a younger woman that I know can have a child. So he and Sarah kind of colluded and came up with the idea that Sarah's maid, Hagar, would be this surrogate mother, okay? So sure enough, Hagar gives birth to Ishmael. And Ishmael is the son of Abraham, but not the son of Sarah. Now, the only problem with that is that Sarah apparently had some jealousy issue going on with Hagar. Like, she was really jealous. She was not happy that Hagar became the mother of this child of promise, and at that time, Abraham and Sarah felt like Ishmael was the son of promise, because they kind of, finagled with God, and I don't know, they just thought that they would help God along. But it wasn't working out. And so there was a lot of clashes between Hagar and Sarah. And finally, Hagar was banished from their home. Sarah went to Abraham and said, you better get rid of this girl. And Abraham went to God, and God said, yeah, you can get rid of her. I don't understand that. Okay, by the way. But so Hagar and Ishmael are tossed out of the house, and they go into the wilderness. And this story is told in Genesis chapter 21, starting at verse 8 and going to verse 21. And what happened was that when they went out, they basically were sent out with very little to survive on. And so they were about to die. And as I read the story, let me just read it to you. I've got it here. Hagar and Ishmael wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba, and the water in the skin was used up. This was the water that Abraham and Sarah had given them. And she placed the boy under one of the shrubs. Then she went and sat down across from him at a distance. And she said to herself, let me not see the death of the boy. Like, she figured, he's going to die. I don't want to watch it happen. So she sat opposite him, and she lifted her voice and wept. And then God heard the voice of the lad, and the angel called to Hagar out of heaven and said to her, what ails you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise, lift up the lad and hold him with your hand, for I will make him a great nation. And I love this next verse. Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the skin with water and gave the lad a drink. So, what I want to point out here is that, first of all, she was filled with fear, which was an expectation of evil, which was not, unrealistic for what was going on in her life. But God opened her eyes when she was gifted with the vision and the sight that God gave her. It gave her hope, and it gave her the expectation of something good. When she saw that water, she said, "We are going to live," in her heart. And so she knew that this was a good thing. And so I just wanted to encourage you that when you are in the midst of fear and having this expectation of evil, whether it's reality based or not reality based, I want to encourage you to ask God, God, would you open my eyes and give me the vision for what you want me to see so that I can have hope, so that I can have that expectation of good. And so, Lord, I pray for each one listening today that you would open their eyes to see what you want them to see and to have the hope that you want them to have. May you be blessed today. Bye now.